So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to check out our newest Warframe, the Alchemist Lavos, and talk a little bit about the build I've been using on him. So Lavos is a bit weird. He doesn't have any energy and he works purely off of cooldowns, meaning that efficiency doesn't work the way it normally would, as in reduce the amount of energy it costs to cast an ability, and it doesn't even necessarily work the way you might think it would, as in reducing the cooldowns, at least not directly. Lavos' third ability will reduce the cooldown of his other abilities for each enemy hit, and the amount that gets reduced is based off of your efficiency, so the more efficiency you have, the more cooldown you will shave off. And that's not the only sort of weird thing about Lavos, because power duration, while not doing an awful lot for his abilities directly, will affect the duration of the status effects you inflict with those abilities. So completely butchering your power duration, thinking, well, it's not really affecting my abilities at all, is not a very good idea. But anyway, on to the build. The build I ended up going with only requires one Forma, where you simply add a V, though this is with a suboptimal Exiles mod. So if you want a proper Exiles mod and get a little bit more strength or range or whatever, you want to put on another Forma somewhere. For the aura, I chose Corrosive Projection, which is just a really good aura, and Energy Siphon won't do anything for you here. Then for the Scuffed Exiles, I went with Handspring for a little bit faster knockdown recovery, which is mainly because of the Sedo, which is something I really like to run on Lavos, which will knock you down with the glyph. And for the actual mods, we have Steel Fiber for a bunch of armor, Vitality for a ton of health, and Adaptation for some damage resistance, so that as you get hit by damage, you get adapted to that damage and take less of it in the future. This will make you pretty damn beefy. Then we have Stretch and Auger Reach for a ton of range without crippling any other stats. And this is here just so you can hit as much stuff as possible, so you can spread status over a large area and you can do damage over a large area as well. But it also kind of makes up for our low efficiency because it increases the radius of our third, so it's easier to hit more enemies with it. And finally, we're going to top it off with a ton of strength through Intensify, Auger Secret, and Blind Rage. Now you might be thinking, well, isn't it a bad idea to lower your efficiency and essentially cripple the only way to actively reduce the cooldown of your other abilities? And no, not necessarily, because efficiency on Lavos is very situational. It just depends on the number of enemies that are near you, which just isn't consistent. Plus, since Lavos' fourth ability is the one with the longest cooldown, you want to use your third ability after the fourth ability to reduce that long cooldown. The problem is his fourth ability does the most damage in the largest area, so you kind of kill all the things you would then hit with your 3 to reduce the cooldown. But the thing is, the cooldown on your 4 isn't super long, it's like 30 seconds, so it's not worth sitting on your 3 waiting for a big group of enemies to plow through to get a ton of cooldown reduction, right? And on top of all of that, your 4 also has a built-in condition overload, so you want to use your other abilities first to proc status, and they have a very short cooldown, so by the time you get to your 4, they're coming off of cooldown. So basically what I'm saying is you fire whatever, whenever, and it seems to work out just fine. So for the most part, the cooldown reduction is just a nice bonus. I mean, seriously, don't try to force it because things will rarely line up, and it's way more fun and much more enjoyable to just fire off whatever whenever and just have fun spreading status like an absolute madman. Now, as far as my thoughts on Lavos, well, I really wasn't interested in Lavos at all. I mean, all the way up until he was released, I was just like, well, I guess I'll get Lavos because, you know, I want to have all the things, but whatever. But my goodness, Lavos is actually a lot of fun, especially in something like Elite Sanctuary Onslaught, where you have a ton of enemies that you can constantly cover in your crazy concoctions. The damage isn't like crazy high, don't expect like Nidus level of damage, it falls off right around level 100-ish. And it is a bit awkward, especially at the start with all the infusions and stuff, because if you didn't know this, each of Lavos' abilities corresponds to an element, right? His first is Toxin, second is Cold, third is Electricity, and fourth is Heat. And what you can do is hold the ability button down, and instead of casting it, it will add that element to like your vial, which will then enhance that element onto your next ability. And you can combine those elements as well, so you can make things like viral, corrosive, gas, magnetic, and so on. And while I personally mostly go with either Heat or Toxin depending on the faction I'm fighting, if you really want to do big damage, you want to start off with viral to increase the damage they take, so that's 2 infusions and a cast, and then heat cast, and it can get pretty fiddly pretty fast, though once you get into the rhythm it's actually not too bad. So all in all, I kind of like Lavos, I think he's pretty cool, and I would highly recommend you give him a shot, and while you're at it, you might as well try this build as well. And that is pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you some other time. Bye bye.